Okay, team, moving on to video number 3 here in this series. Now we've established our communications to our HMI, and we've got our tag up and running. We've got it formatted. We can see it on the screen. So before we get into more parts of the class, I like to do a little teaser exercise right here, and maybe throw in a little graphics real quick. So if I go over here to Crimson, and if I go over to Display Pages over here on the left, and on the right side, I'm going to click on Primitives over here on the right. Now, primitives over here are what we call our smart elements or objects that do something, change colors or move or interact. These are our smart things. You can also make more of your own later on, which we'll do in this class. But these are predominantly all that are included in Crimson 3.1 and 3.2 for now. So in this case, I just want to quickly play with the gauge. So if I go into the category called Gauges, up here on top, click on Gauges, you can see here that I've got all kinds of different gauges that are available here. And what's interesting about all of these gauges, they all operate the same way. They just have a different look to them. So for instance, this gauge here, or this one, it doesn't matter, but I'll click on one of these one time, boom, and you'll see that you get different versions of that behind the scenes. Again, you can go all the way into configuring what they call a naked gauge, this one right here, to a fully loaded where you can change all the colors and everything. And you can do this with any of them. You can take this one and make it look like this guy and so forth. But anyway, these are the default ones. So let's say I just grab this one, and following my usual thing, I want to just drag and drop it on the screen. So I'm just going to place it here. Maybe I'll move this guy down here. And I want this gauge to follow the values from our temp F. So what I'm going to do here, I'll go ahead and double click on this thing, or right click and go to Properties. Notice, team, that Crimson automatically kicked you into data tags on the right here when you do that, because it sees right here that, oh, maybe you want to change or link this to a particular tag, and that's exactly what I want to do. So I'm going to grab the tag tempf, and following what I say, the best part about Crimson, in my opinion, is the ability to just drag and drop stuff to link up to things. So I'm going to basically drag tempf from the right side right here into the value field. Now watch what happens. I'm going to drag it right here and drop it. I want you to notice what happens to this gauge. Drop it here, boom. Look, something weird happened. The gauge there went full scale. I don't know if you noticed that, but it did. It went completely full scale. And the reason it did that, team, is because by default, right here, this min and max, you can kind of see it's grayed out. Well, it has kind of it's insinuating that behind the scenes, that is 0 to 100. Now, we know that we set up the tempf tag. If I go over here to the spreadsheet, we set up the tempf tag to go from 0 to 1,000, but it's going to display as 0 to 100.0. So 0 to 1,000, if I go back to Crimson, if I put the max here, well, I'll put a 0 in for the min, hard-coded, if you will. And for the max, if I put in 1,000, notice I typed 1,000. I haven't entered yet. I'm going to hit enter. Let's see if the gauge does anything. 1, 2, 3, boom. Whoa, look at the gauge. The gauge jumped to, if you look at it, if this happens to be 0 and this is 1,000, well, this should be like right around 500, if you will. It's a little bit above there. Now, let's see if I move it just a little bit. Look. I am simulating that as 555, so that's what it took on that properties simulating right there, so that's why it jumped to that position. Now, this is okay to do this. However, what I'm talking about is this min and max. I really prefer to teach students to get as much values as possible from the tag level. That way, if I have to change the range of this particular graphic or something, I can just change the min and max at the tag, and all the corresponding graphics throughout the database will follow accordingly. So what does that mean? Well, I want to link min and max to the tempf min and max. So watch what I do here. I'm going to drag tempf right here. Boom. Maybe I won't. Try it again. Drag it right there. There's tempf there. And then I'll drag tempf again right here. Now, right now, that means that the min and max is linked to the same thing. It's not going to do anything. What I want to get is I want to get the minimum parameter from this field and the maximum parameter to this field. So I'm going to double click in here a few times or get to where this is general, and I get my cursor or my blinky blinky there to be after the emp, or after the F. And I'll do a dot MIN, enter. Look, it took it, okay? And then down here, I will do a dot MAX, boom, it took it. So now that means it's getting this min and max, which we had earlier, 0 to 1,000. It's actually getting those values from the tag level. So if I right-click on this thing here and do jump to, this will take you to things or multiple things you can pick that are controlling something. So if I click here, it takes it to the tag, and it's getting the dot min and max from right here on the Format tab right here. So if I was to change this, it changes to something else. I am curious. If I go back to data, let's say I change this to 777. Okay, so if I go back to display pages, notice the page is still sitting at this 555, so forth. I'm going to click on this page and see what happens. Let's see if I can get Crimson to refresh. 1, 2, 3, boom. Okay, so this changed, but this guy did not. So I wonder, let me double click on this guy. And once I double clicked on it, it caused Crimson to recompile this particular primitive. And look, it went from being right here over to here. So now it's set up for 777. So I'll click the OK button. And let's go ahead and save this. I'm going to save this right now as video number 3 here. So give me a second. Sorry, we've got Cujo going crazy here. I'm going to go ahead and rename this guy video number 3 here. I think I just did this accident here. Hold on. This is number 2. Boo. So this is going to be number 2. That's what it was before. We'll make this video number 3. Save it here. Remember, you always want to click no to this. So I'm going to click no. All right, let's test it. Go ahead and download it. Here we go. Boom. Let's see what shows up here. So the web page should have the gauge on it here. Let's take a look. Hey, there's our gauge. Notice it's sitting right on the 50th percentile here. So if we go over to our simulator, oddly enough, I can reset the simulator by clicking here and then click this, and now it'll oscillate between 0.0 to 100.0. So the cool thing here is we just quickly went ahead and set up a graphic on here. Now if I want to go a little further, let me just show you a few things you can do with this thing. I can double click on my gauge here, if you will. And not only can I use a pointer like this, but I can change this to a sweeper. So I can do a sweeper type thing on here, believe it or not, which is kind of cool. And then really nothing on the layout here, just some angle things. This is where right here where the style is, you can actually hit the pull down here and choose different custom, for instance, and you can totally change all kinds of colors for this thing. So that's under the style custom here. And then the bands, this is interesting, team, but in here you can turn on a band and you can have it go from one area to another. So for instance, let's say I wanted a green band to go from 0 to, say, I don't know, we'll go 500, which would be our halfway point because we're going from 0 to 1,000. Now again, this is hard-coded. I don't normally advocate this, but that's what I did. And then say I want to add another one from red, and let's say I want it to go from 800 up to 1,000 here. There. So that moves it to 800 to 1,000 for that guy. And then bugs, oddly enough, you have bugs in here that you can add little pointers. So if I wanted to put a bug at, say, the 25 percentile, I'll put 250 there. And you can change the color of your bug, which is pretty cool. And maybe yellow's not very bright. Do a fuchsia. And then I can add another one down here. We'll put this one at blue. And maybe we'll put this one at 750, for instance. There it is. So now if I click the OK button, I made those changes. Let's go ahead and download this and see what we get here. So now we should have a sweeper, which we have our sweeper. We got our bugs on there. We got our green and our red bands. Pretty cool. All kinds of things you can do with these different graphics, these gauges. They're very versatile, and they all operate the same way, oddly enough. Anyway, let's see here. All right, so that concludes this part. We'll move on to the next video where we go build up some more tags. But I'll save this database, and that's good for this